Nehemiah, the second chapter, really cueing in on verse 17 and 18. Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 17 and 18. This is what it says. Then I said to them, you see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste, and its gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. And I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me, and also of the king's words that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us rise up and build. Then they set their hands to do this good work. Today I want to deal with really a summary of what we have been talking about from the series Taking Racism Out of Religion, from the series. And today I want to sum up ultimately what all of this has been about. From Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 17 and 18 in particular, as we focus in on it, I think if I were to title this, I would have to use Rebuild the Broken Places. Rebuild the broken places. All around us today, we are experiencing, witnessing, watching, wondering, how is all of this going to come to a close, to a climax? What is going to be the focus, and how are things going to ultimately turn out? And I'm glad that's on our mind, because if we allow it to leave us too quickly, then we will ultimately allow the past to continue to be our present and future. But if we focus in and wonder and in waiting, what will the tomorrow be like? What will the next day? What will our future be like? I believe the Word of God will do exactly what God has planned and purposed for it to do in our lives. And so when we see and hear and read Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 17 and 18, it actually captures several things. You know, those of you that are Bible scholars, that the first chapter of Nehemiah, Nehemiah is questioning and inquiring about his people, the children of Israel there in Jerusalem. And he gets information from someone, and he finds out that things are not as good as he desires. He finds out that they are being challenged in more places and more ways than one. And so when he gets that information from his countrymen about his homeland, he begins to pray, he begins to fast, he begins to ask God, what am I to do? What can I do to help get us back to the place we're supposed to be? The place where you, God, intended us to be. What am I to do? What can I do? And I think that's a question for all of us today, that you and I can grab hold to and say, God, I may not be the biggest, I may not have the loudest, I may not even have all of the things that others have, but what can I do in my situation where I am to help us today? Not only with this pandemic, not only with this systematic injustices that have been going on, what can I do? And I think these Nehemiah brings out these things that will help you and I as we are sincere about moving forward and about helping today. There are several things that I noted there. the Bible says in the book of Nehemiah 2, chapter 2 and verse 17, and I think that's the first thing that you and I should consider. We need to know the state of our environment. What's going on around us? What do we see? I mean, we have many things that you and I can cue in on because of what the pandemic has done over the last several months, because of the now visual appearance and actions and awareness of all of this systemic racism that has been going. Now we are able to focus in on our environment. So I think Nehemiah chapter 2 verse 17 actually brings it out so we can understand what is the state of our environment. Notice what Nehemiah says. He says, see the distress that we are in. That's the state of our environment today. We're in a distressed place. What do you mean, preacher? Well, let's look at our nation. Honestly, we don't know what is being done about this pandemic in our nation, even in our world globally. We don't really know. We are trusting that the medical science areas are doing their best. We are trusting that those that are in government positions are funneling the funds and helping the research move forward. We are hoping that they're reaching out to those that are in other nations around us to get information. But please note, Nehemiah says, see the distress that we are in. See the state of our nation today. But it doesn't just go that place. It goes further. See the distress of our government. Look at what's going on in the leadership. Look at what's going on nationally. Look at what's going on statewide. Look at what's going on in cities and counties. Look at what's going on in your neighborhood, in your community. Look at the distress we're in, where people locally will go in a store and run rapid over things. They will begin to not even follow simple directions to help a community as a whole. Look at the state of our government. Look at the state of our communities, where people would rather isolate themselves from doing what is right for all and try to stand up and say, you're infringing on my right personally. Look at the state of our nation. Look at the state of our government, where the people that are in political positions and power will look like they're trying to make more division of a people and a place than they are trying to bring us together. Looks like they're trying to divide us by their words and by their actions. When you have a person in leadership that will continue to put out negative things by other people, are you telling me that the only sense that you have is to tear somebody else down so you can be built up? That's the state of our government. They would rather put someone else down than to just walk on the merits of themselves. So he says, look at the distress that we are in. My brothers, my sisters, look at the distress we're in. Not only the distress of our nation, or the state of our nation, not only the state of our communities, of our government rather, and the state of our communities, but also the state of our schools. For so long they have been educating us or miseducating us on things that they held to be right, to be good, and we are finding out now that it was all a cover-up on a whole lot of things. When you would rather popularize the injustices and then try to smooth over those people and make them look like they were heroes, look at the state of our schools and our school system. Look at the state of our schools, where you will try honestly to infuse and to influx wrong according to the scriptures and make it right. Isn't that something, that you will try to make wrong right in the eyes of a nation? Look at the state of our schools, where our children are being taught at home how to hate and how to separate. When they come into school, they practice what they have been taught from home. Look at the state of our school. Let's go a little further, because if you don't know the state of your environment, let's look at the state of our churches, where we should be upholding the cause of Christ, where we should be teaching the Word of God to better not only ourselves, but to better those that are around us. However, you have people that will try to use the Bible from the church, from the pulpit, to help preach division. Look at the state of our churches, where we are wondering, should we preach more on the popular subjects of things that will aggravate some people or irritate other people? Look at the state of the church, where we will follow the trend instead of following the truth. Look at the state of our churches. Let's go just a little farther. Look at the state of our families, where you would rather popularize the single parent than to uphold the biblical value of a husband and a wife and a man and a woman and then their children coming together to form that of a family. Look at the state of our family, where we have more people trying to push a single mother or a single father than they're trying to push a family, a husband and a wife coming together. Look at the state of our family, where you would try to redefine a family to be not a husband and a wife, but a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Not a husband and a wife, but a live-in companion. Look at the state of our family, where you will allow a child to dictate how the family is going to be ran. Look at the state of our family. Let's go on, because when you look at the state of our environment, lastly, we have to look at the state of our personal lives, our own agendas. What am I supposed to be here for? What did God create me for? What is the destiny of my life? If you're only thinking of me, myself, and I, you've missed the whole thing. You have to take a real good look of the state of our environment, where man will look after what man wants, where man is more involved and more attentive to his own desires than the desire of God, so that everybody will come to the place. Look at the state of our environment, and I believe that's what Nehemiah was bringing out when he says, see the distress that we're in, where there's confusion. Somebody don't even know what gender they are. That's confusion. When a man wants to be or act like or dress like a woman, that's distressful confusion. When a woman wants to dress like, act like, and be a man, and so it trickles down even to the state of our family, because now we say, well, I was born this way. You're trying to influence a child to come in where the mind is not even developed. Look at the state of our environment, where you would rather justify the wrongdoing of a police officer to take the breath of a person who's telling them, I can't breathe, and you still keep your knee on his neck, and you still try to justify. Look at the state of our environment, where you will allow people to die and tell them, don't worry about wearing a mask. Or you would allow people to die and tell them, this will be over quickly. This is leadership that's talking. Look at the state of our environment, where you would rather repeat a lie and try to cover up and don't take responsibility for your acts as a leader. Look at the state of our environment, when you have a group of people that will sit there and support wrong instead of standing up for what is right based on the Word of God. Look at the state of our environment. And so I believe Nehemiah brings all of that out. Well, the Bible has said it over and over, and by the witness of 2 or 3, let every word be established. 2 Timothy chapter 3, really verses 1 through 5 talks about we are in perilous days. This is perilous time, Paul says. He goes on in Philippians chapter 2, verse 15, and said, we are living in a crooked and perverse generation. Look at the state of our environment. Deuteronomy gives us something. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 5 talks about how Moses even declared that this that's going on is not right, not the will of God. It is wrong. So when we really look at the state of our environment, we have to confess, we have to admit, if you are to any degree, someone that wants Bible to be right in your life, to uphold the morals and values that God institute, you have to say that we are in a distressful time. when people they don't know whether or not they're going to have financial resources to feed their family, to stay in the homes they are. We are in a time of distress today. When people are wondering, am I going to be able to go back to work, or am I going to be able to even be employed? We are living in a distressful time. Well, if I get this COVID-19, will I have the medical insurance, or will I have the ability to get those things that will help me to go through this, to get out of this? We are in distressful times. And that's what I believe this particular area of Nehemiah brings out for us, that we need to know and recognize the state of our environment. He tells us all of this that's going on, it can cause you and I to wonder, is there any hope in the midst of this that we're dealing with? When I look at the state of our environment, it will cause me to wonder, God, are you just sitting back seeing how far we can get away from you? How far we can get away from right? How far the devil will run rampant in our land? When I look at the state of our environment, it will cause me to wonder what is really going on. Because the church's job is to remind us of the morals and the values that should have been set before us according to God's word. But the Bible helps you and I, because the church is supposed to be the light of the world. The Bible will help us because we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. So I cannot wait on the world to tell me, look at my environment. I cannot wait on the world to tell me the state of my environment, because they are so far away from God and the Word of God that they believe that the state of the environment is actually okay. And we'll get over this fine. But if you have that mentality, you don't really see what's going on around you. You don't really see how family values are corroding. You don't really see how our communities and our personal lives and our government and our educational system and our schools and our communities and our nation, how it is corroding under its own devices, under its own ways. So what is the state of our environment? I believe Nehemiah brings it out. He says, see the distress that we are in. The state of our environment shows us that we are in serious distress. But I believe he brings out something else there that will help us, because not only do I need to see the state of my environment when I'm talking about rebuilding the broken places, but also I need to see the strength of our influences. The strength of our influences. Well, let's look at the negative strength of our influences first. First, look at a person that is in a political position of leadership that is influencing those that are less fortunate in their intelligence. When you can influence somebody to be racist just because of the color of their skin, you do know you're dealing with a person that's less fortunate in their intelligence. When you can look at a person because of their economic status, because they don't make the money that you may make, and try to belittle them or think they are less than you as a person, we're dealing with a person that you have to admit is less fortunate in their intelligence. When you could, preacher, what are you talking about? I'm talking about a person that they're actually so dumb they don't know how to dumb down their own thinking. So he says, not only do I need to look at the state of my environment, but I need to look and consider the strength of my influence. When a government official will tell you that it's okay not to wear your mask, and people are dying every day, you have to look at the state or the strength of that influence, where people will rather listen to a person that has no understanding of medical science, no understanding of how epidemics spread, and tell you everything is going to be all right, and you follow that person. Then you have to consider the strength of that influence. Well, let's see. From a biblical standpoint, the strength of influence can always be compared right and wrong, because Satan actually took a third of the angels with him. That strength of his influence caused them to follow him in wrong, in error. So now I get a good picture of all of those that are following this man that is leading them down the wrong road and believing they're all right. The strength of that influence, unfortunately, is there is a nation that we're living in that will listen to the foolishness and the buffoonery of a person that will say that I'm good, I'm okay, but my lifestyle has nothing to do with it. The history of my life should not be your example. Isn't it something that we would rather listen to a person that say, I'll make you rich in the pocket, but I won't give you any thought patterns. I won't give you richness of the mind. I won't give you any morals. I won't give you any values. That's the strength of his influence and those around you. Well, I can't just blame it on the person here. I have to blame it on the influence that is really spiritually, because the strength of Satan's influence is all around us, where people will gravitate to wrong rather than right, where people will readily listen to, where people will readily watch, where people will want to know what is wrong instead of doing what is right. That's the strength of Satan's influence. But let me move you forward, lest you think there's no hope. Because the real strength of influence, I believe Nehemiah brings out when he says the hand of God was with him. He says the hand of my God, verse 18 there. Ultimately, he says, let me show you the strength of the influence of God in my life and my influence with the hand of God over my life. He shows us there. He says, my God, he shows us that there's a relationship between, and it ought to be between man and God, but so many around us allow it to be between Satan and them. So Nehemiah brings out, he says there in verse 18, he says, and I told them of the hand of my God which had been up on me. He says, I want you to understand the strength of our influence. When I prayed, when I fasted, when I cried out to God and asked God, what should I do? God began to give me what I needed to do. And I think that will help you and I, not only in our nation, not only in our government, not only in our schools, not only in our communities, not only in our families, but also with you and I individually. The strength of our influence should be, God, you have more influence over me than the President of the United States. God, you have more influence over me than the government or the political government people that's out there trying to divide us based on their political viewpoint. God, you have more influence over my life than even I have over myself. The strength of our influence ought to be, God, you are greater than me. God, you know more than I do. God, you see everything. I'm limited to my view, but you have a view. And so the strength of our influence should be that of what does God want for us? What is God allowing this to happen and to shake us up? I mean, a generation today that has never experienced such dramatic things that we have. Let me start at the beginning. A state where we have somebody in a political leadership that is known, that has practiced, that continue to try to break down and divide a people based on their words, that will continue to actually try to break down that of a family based on their own marital history. When you've been married 3 times and have children from separate ones, and the one you got was a form of all right. You have to understand, God, what is it that I need to understand and see, so that when I picture things that are going on, who am I allowing to be the influence in my life? And so Nehemiah brings out those, he says, the hand of my God, which was on me. So I think if I'm going to understand the state of our environment and then look at the influence or the strength of our influence, then I need to understand God's hand need to be on me. I need to pray more. I need to fast more. I need to read God's word because I want his hand on me. I want his hand on me individually so that I can live the life that he has called me to live. My brother, my sister, you want God's hand on you so that you will make the right decisions personally. So you won't be a public success and a private failure. You want the hand of God on you personally. I want you to be the man or the woman that God has called you to be, and not even the one that you think you want to be yourself. So the hand of God needs to be on. When the hand of God is on you, not only you individually, but you will be able to lead your family. You will be able to lead your children to understand right and wrong. You will be able to lead your son and tell him, no, son, God made you a man. You're supposed to be a man. No, daughter, if God made you to be a woman, you're supposed to be a woman. No, there will not be any divorces based on pride, based on stupidity. No, I'm going to, when the hand of God is on me, then I'm going to lead my family. It's not saying that I'm going to be perfect, but I'm going to pursue. I'm going to go after the things of God. When the hand of God is upon me, I'll not only be good for myself, I'll be good for my family, I'll be good for the church. I'll be able to encourage somebody else that's close to me. I'll be able to pray for them. I'll be able to strengthen them. I'll be able to show them that if I can live by the word of God and move forward, then you can too. Let's come together and do it. But when the hand of God is not only on you, and when the hand of God is on your family, and the hand of God is on your church, then the hand of God will begin to be on your community. It'll be spread out around you. When it's on your community, then that means it'll be start going into school. It'll start going into government. It'll start moving into leadership. That's when the hand. And he says, no, you have to understand the strength of your influence. It can start with just you. Being the man, being the woman that God has called you to be for your household, and then for your community, and then for those that are around you on your job. You have to know the strength of your influence. The Bible declares there in Nehemiah, when the hand of God is on you, it really denotes authority over your life. When the hand of God is on you, who has authority in your life? Who has the ability to tell you you are wrong here or you are right there? Stop this and start that. When the hand of God is on your life, it is no longer you that's being the boss. It is the creator, the sustainer, the provider, the protector. It is God. When the hand of God is on your life, he says that denotes authority. It also denotes power. Not just power to save you from the penalty of sin. Not just power to save you from the past of your sins. Not just power to save you from the presence of sin one day, but power to save you from the practice of sin. It denotes, when the hand of God is on you, it denotes authority and it denotes power. But then it also denotes position. It tells me when the hand of God is on my life that God is watching me just as intense as I'm watching him. It denotes position, that I'm maneuvering myself. I'm positioning myself so I can hear from God. I can see the things of God. I can understand those things. It denotes position, where I won't be so busy watching the news instead of reading the word. It denotes position where I won't be so caught up on trying to improve me and put you down, where I will say, God, if I do what is right in your sight, you will lift me up, you will exalt me, and I can help somebody else. You got to not only understand the state of our environment when you want to rebuild the broken places, but you also have to understand the strength of the influence. 2 Chronicles 7:14, you know it. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, will pray, will seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will heal from heaven, and I will heal their land. That's the strength of your influence. A believer, my brother, the Bible says in James chapter 5, verse 16, that the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. That's the strength of your influence. Psalms 18, verse 6 says, in my distress I called upon the Lord and cried out to my God, and he heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him even to his ears. God begins to hear that person who he understands, and he sees that my hand is on their life. I've got them. So the strength of our influence really deals with the level of our relationship with God. It affords me the opportunity to allow my influence to be more. That's why you have to do what's right, because on your job, you really don't know how you're influencing people. Let me just parenthetically pause and put this in position for you. If you are quiet when people are doing wrong or saying stuff wrong, then you are influencing them to believe it's okay by your silence. But when you open your mouth and say, I disagree with that, that ain't right. You're not supposed to put them down. You're not supposed to laugh at that. You're not supposed to backbite. You're not supposed to backstab. You're not supposed to play around on your spouse. Then your level of influence goes out, because they may even disagree, but they have to admit to the fact that what you're saying is right. All right, so he says the level of our influence there should be recognized. Romans chapter 8, actually verse 35 says, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulations, shall distress, shall persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? Ultimately, what he's saying is the strength of my influence is God's hand on me and myself in the things of God. I will not allow nothing. COVID-19, you won't separate me from the love of God. The racist, the systemic racism that is being perpetrated by our political leaders, you won't separate me from the love of God. People that is trying to continue to influence and bring up the division of how the injustices that were done over 200, 300, and 400 years, you won't allow that to separate you from the love of God, because I understand the strength of my influence is God's hand on my life, and my life being an example before you. So I have to understand the strength of the influence. As his children, we have influence with Almighty God. That's why there's hope for today. Because if we're going to say, I want to be in a position to rebuild the broken places in my home, in my own life, in my community, on my job, in government, in our society, I want to be in a position to rebuild the broken places, then he says you need to know the state of your environment. You need to know the strength of your influence. But thirdly, he brings out here in Nehemiah, we need to know the success of our involvement. That's why you can't keep quiet. That's why you can't sit on the sideline. I know I hear somebody right now, you're saying, no, I don't want to be a part of those people that are breaking into buildings and looting them and burning them down. Well, let me help you. It's been burning down for years. It's been corroding for years. When you continue to allow wrong to be done, there's a burning down of a society morally and with values. So you have to know the success of your environment. What can you do individually? What can we do as a family? What can we do as a church? What can we do in our schools? What can we do in our community? What can we do with our government? What can we do with our nation and its leadership? You got to know the strength, rather the success of your involvement. Let me just throw this one out. You want to know the success of your involvement? Vote come November. Preacher, are you trying to tell me to vote for a political party? No, I'm simply saying vote. Make your vote be known. Let your voice be heard. Vote. That's the real success of your involvement. You don't have to sit there and let people believe that it's okay to do, that there is a people that stand up against. The Bible declares there, he says, let us rise up in verse 18 and build. It's time to stop being silent or saying I wish or I think. One of the worst things that I've ever heard somebody ever say as it relates to them voting is, my vote won't really matter. They're going to put in who they want to put in. The devil is a lie. Your vote does matter if it's no more than letting them know everybody don't agree with your foolishness. Everybody is not on your side. So your vote does matter. You got to understand the success of your involvement. He says there, let us rise up and build. So it's time for you to get off of the sofa and rise up. It's time for you to open your mouth instead of being silent. Rise up. It's time for you to stop those injustices that are right around you that's going on in your area of influence. He says, rise up and build. Build your personal life with God. Build your family life. Build your community. Build yourself up, your children. Build them up. because he says that we are to rise up and build. King James Version says, and they strengthen their hands. King James Version says there in verse 18, and he told them of the hand of his God that was on him, how good, and also of the king's word that it was spoken to him. So they said, so we got to rise up. He says, so they said, let us rise up and build. And then they set their hands to do this good work. If you think racial injustice is wrong, set your hand to do a good work. If you believe that law enforcement officers have carried their position of authority too far for the bad and not for the good, they've been having people in those positions that have not been protecting and serving the society, then put your hands to a good work. Don't just think about it, speak about it and do something about it. So he says that we need to understand the success of our involvement. He says, I have to get to my place where I will encourage myself enough where I'm going to get involved. I'm not going to allow this to continue on. I'm not going to allow this to make people think that everything is okay by me saying, well, no, I understand the success of my involvement in this can start changing the whole world around me. He also says there in verse 18, he says, let us rise up and build. Let's get up and start doing something. Well, preacher, I don't want to be a part of those that are protesting violently. Well, then you can protest, but you don't have to be violent. Preacher, I don't want to be involved with people. Every now and then you need to get on Facebook yourself and start telling people, I disagree with wrong, I stand up for right, and I just wanted you to know that this that was done was wrong, this is what should have been done. You need to stand up, rise up, and begin to build on what's right. I don't know what's right. That's where the word of God comes into place. He says, let us step. And so if you're going to say, preacher, what do I need to do? The Bible declares in the book of Genesis where the Tower of Babel, they was actually building up themselves, and they were building up a state of rebellion. God says, let me confuse that foolishness, because they have come together and they begin to do stuff that's even wrong. And have you noticed that's what our government have done? So many have come together and popularized wrong. But you can understand the success of your involvement to help popularize what is right. So I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you. I want to put you in a mindset to rebuild the broken places. You have to start with yourself personally. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, rebuild that broken place. If you're not where you should be, if you've never had a relationship with Christ, that place needs to be rebuilt. You need to change your ways. If your family is in array and your husband or your wife is doing what is contrary to God's word, God's will, God's way, it's time to rebuild the broken places. If your children are acting all against what is right according to Scripture, they're not only not listening to you, but they're actually causing problems for themselves, for their family, for their community. It's time to rebuild that broken place. If you've been quiet on the job and people have been making comments or doing actions that is unjust, it's time to rebuild that broken place. And I believe Nehemiah brings it there. How do I do it? You need to know the state of your involvement. Rebuild a broken place, know the state of your involvement. How do I do it? You need to know the strength of your influence. God's hand on your life and your life in the hands of God. Know the strength of your influence. And then you need to know the success of your involvement. You got to get up and do something. Remember, all of this started with Nehemiah in chapter 1, where he said, when I saw it, when I heard it, when I was aware of it, I began to pray. I began to fast. I began to inquire of God, what am I to do? God used this one person to influence. God used this one person to build. God used this one person to begin to get people together for right. So if we're going to build the broken places, let's start now. Where do I start? Let's pray where you are. Father, I thank you today for this time that we've come together to not only encourage us to be aware of our society, but also give us direction of what we are to do. I pray for that, my brother. I pray for my sister. I pray for the family as a whole. I pray for our community. I pray for our city, our state, our country. I pray for our mayors. I pray for our governors. I pray for our senators. I pray for our Congress people. I pray for our president and his cabinet. Because it's time to rebuild the broken places. Not only individually, but even collectively. So God, I ask you now, that person who's listening to me, their heart is turned toward you. Because I believe because of this, they really do want your hand on their life, and they want your life in your hand. So I pray for them now. Father, help them make the right decision. Don't have to know Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic, but they can just simply say, God, I need you. Come into my life now. I want to be right. I want to be a rebuilder of those broken places. Do that for them. I pray, God, you would shake us individually. I pray you would shake us as a community, as a church. I pray that you would shake this government. Just like you are shaking us through COVID-19, just like you are shaking us through now the great awareness of the systemic injustices. You're shaking us through this awareness. I pray that you would shake us to say, you know what, I see the state of my environment. I understand the strength of my influence, and I want to be a part of the success of my environment. Do that for us all now. And we'll forever give you the praise and the glory and the honor. In Jesus' name. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want you to know that here at North Houston Church, we love you. We're praying for you. This is our time, since we're not able to fellowship together in the facility, in the sanctuary. This is our time for you to come together with us in worship. And so for this hour that we've been here, I pray that you will be encouraged. You will be informed. You will be instructed. You will be equipped on being a rebuilder of the broken places. You want to get in touch with us? Just follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. Go to our website, northhoustonchurch.org, and you can get more information of being a part of a people that wants to build us up. I want you to know that I'm praying for you individually and collectively. May not know your name, but I know the state that we're in. I'm praying for you. May not know where you live, but I see the state of our country. I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your continual support of the ministry, because we're actually here for you. We're here to build you up to a position of strength and maturity. So you have a blessed week. Go back and study Nehemiah 2, verse 17, 18, and be encouraged through this word. Don't give up. Don't give out. God knows what's going on, and he'll be there for you. Have a blessed week on purpose, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining us for the services today. I know you were blessed, and I want to encourage you to be a blessing to someone else by sharing this on social media to your family and your friends. Know that every Sunday morning we are on at 10:30 a.m. and then Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. We want to be a blessing to you every week. Have a blessed week on purpose.